So lay of the land, if you will. What's next in this fight?
Well, to be clear, first, thank you for having me. And they're suing me because I wouldn't give them the voter rolls that they are asking for in violation of not just state law, but the Privacy Act of 1974. And the subpoenas that were recently served subpoenaed the Cyber Ninja data from that crazy fraud thing that they had going here in Arizona 5 or 6 years ago. What is going on right now is a full frontal assault against the single most popular voting method in Arizona by a long shot, and that is ballot by mail voting, created by Republicans, supported by Republicans, until one particular Republican lost. And oh, by the way, in 2024, I presided over the Electoral College where 81% of the vote came in and Donald Trump won that election. So to say that ballot by mail is problematic for Republicans when they gain seats in our state house and Senate is a really big stretch. Most Arizonans love it. It's more secure. It's more affordable. And that's really kind of the state of the state in Arizona when it comes to it. We love our ballot by mail. We have ID at the polls. We have documented proof of citizenship. Every ballot is cast on paper. This is really kind of the dream state for these folks. And to try to impose this on all of the other states who would have to, it would cost them tens of millions of dollars. In fact, in Arizona to switch to away from ballot by mail voting, there's no money for it. Like, are they going to fund this thing? Like, that's kind of the real governance, responsible way to look at these things that just doesn't work. And oh, by the way, the Brennan Center has indicated that up to 22 million Americans will not be able to vote if the SAVE Act passes. And I've seen studies that show that the biggest hurt will be as against Republican women. And that's really problematic politically for the president. That's probably why the Republicans in the Senate don't want to pass this thing. It's a hot mess.
So you've said previously you'd rather go to jail than comply with the DOJ's request for voter data. So I wonder what your thought process was when you heard the state Senate had handed over reams of voting information to the FBI under that grand jury subpoena. What are your concerns overall here?
Well, first and foremost, we haven't seen the subpoena, so we don't know exactly what information was turned over. If it was cast vote records and ballot images and all of that extra stuff, that's fine. Nobody can do anything about that. The election is well done and gone. My concern isn't even with the publicly available voter data, names, addresses, party affiliation. That's available with a public records request, which, by the way, the Department of Justice has never asked for. What I am concerned with is the other part of the voter rolls, and that is the sensitive identifying information, driver's license numbers, whole or part of Social Security numbers, mother's maiden name, day and month of birth. These are the sensitive parts of the information that I'm fighting to protect from the Department of Justice. And by the way, they've lost their lawsuits to get this information in several states already, and they've sued even Republican states who are trying to protect this information. West Virginia, Utah, and several others. We are not in this alone. This is a Democratic and Republican Secretary of State fight against an overreaching Department of Justice. And what scares me the most about this is the Department of Justice may have used this criminal grand jury to end around active litigation in Arizona to bypass the judge so that they can just get the information anyway. And there are several other complicating factors about that information and how it's different than what the information shows now because of some motor vehicle problems with record keeping that we've discovered in the interim. And so the danger here is the abuse of bad information, the abuse of not well cataloged information, and around the Department of the Judiciary by the Department of Justice. This whole thing stinks to high heaven, but we are going to continue to fight, get to the bottom of it. But I want Arizona voters to understand, we don't know if your personal identifying information has been a part of this. This is one of the key pieces of information we're trying to find out, because I'm going to continue to protect that as long as I'm the Secretary of State.
And of course, Arizona isn't the only state that's concerned about this. And I don't know if you heard the segment we had before you, but there's this split in the Republican Party. While they're looking at messaging, while folks on the Hill are looking at messaging, Donald Trump seems to be very interested in process. And that's why you see this voting act. But the Democratic National Committee is actually suing the federal government, demanding to know whether the president has plans to send armed officers to election sites. That's just one of the concerns that's been raised. Do you have concerns about what the federal government might do come election in November? And are you preparing for it?
Well, I heard the part earlier about what Senator Padilla's reaction was to the possibility, for example, of the president declaring an emergency. The president has about 134 different emergency powers under which he can declare an emergency. None of them include an emergency that would stop elections. Let me say that again. The president can declare emergencies in a variety of different spaces, but not as to the administration of elections. That is a state duty. And so that is off the table, 100% off the table. I don't know a court in the land that, I mean, look, we've always had elections, Civil War, world wars, during the Spanish flu, during COVID, during hurricanes and floods across the United States of America. Election administrators always come through. These are your county clerks, those folks that work the polling places. We've had folks in Arizona that will spend the night before in a polling place because they didn't know if the roads were going to be too muddy the next day to get to serving their voters. This is the dedication of American poll workers at the county level, at the local level. We will not cancel our elections based on a bogus emergency order coming out of this White House. This is the true grit of American poll workers and county election officials across the United States of America. So he can declare an emergency for a bunch of stuff, but we will have midterm elections in 2026, come hell or high water, as we have before, and American democracy will prevail regardless of the political outcomes, which folks like me really only care about as it pertains to our own reelection.
Arizona Secretary of State Adrian Fontes, thank you very much.